Hey, this is Carlo at 4GTV here, and I'm here with Aaron. How do I pronounce your last name?
Gilhuis.
Gilhuis?
Yeah. No one. Don't worry about it. No one. No
Okay.
one gets it the first try.
All right. Well, thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Uh, and I just want to ask you, how did you get started into music? I see you got a lot of instruments behind you, so you're definitely into music, but how did you get started, your love, your passion for it?
It's a good question. I started when I was probably in middle school. There's a lot of musicians in my family, and so I picked up a guitar one day. I picked up a bass. Actually, my dad's a bass player, and so I started there. And it was kind of the first thing that I loved. I mean, I wasn't really good at anything else. I was never good at sports, never good at school, anything like that until I picked up music, and then it was something that I got really passionate about and really excited about. And that's just all I did. I just played and played and played and learned as much as I could. I wanted to get into songwriting more, so I picked up more instruments and I just kind of kept going and recording and picked up piano and more different guitars and learned how to produce tracks and write songs. And it kind of went from there. I went to school for music production and then fell in love with scoring while I was in college, and then kind of set my sights on the film world and soundtracks and scores, and it just kind of naturally evolved from there.
One thing I do like to ask a lot of creative people is sometimes some people just like music, for example, you just have an ear for it and you pick it up. Just like artists, they pick up a pencil and they start drawing. Sometimes they go to school for it to kind of max out their skills. In your case, what was that like for you? Did you pick up from your father? Did you pick up from school, or did you go into like specific one-on-one music training?
I had a little bit of lessons, but they didn't really. It wasn't really the thing that was exciting me of learning, to read music and play songs like that. It was really just kind of stretching my repertoire and playing my favorite songs on bass. And yeah, I would play with my dad, and he'd show me some things, and then eventually I'd show him some things. But yeah, it was never something I was when I started recording and writing. It was never something I was super naturally gifted at. I mean, I was okay. I practiced a lot, so I was good at playing. But it was really something that I just loved, and so I worked at. I worked at really hard, and I was the first thing I was ever competitive about, really. When I got a hold of music, it just kind of ignited my competitive edge, and I wanted to be better, and I wanted to be, you know, um, wanted to be the best, really. And so that's kind of where the inspiration and the passion came from.
What was your first musical gig? What got your career started?
Um, I was in college and I had just graduated, and I was thinking about going into audio post production because it was a course at my college that I could have done, but I really just, I really wanted to sink my teeth into scoring. And so I was working at like a Best Buy or something, and I was late to work one Sunday because my bus didn't come. And I remember a cab driver told me while I was wearing my Best Buy uniform, he's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a composer." And he's like, "Oh, cool. There's this company in this small town in Canada, and they just shot their first kind of independent horror film. You should give them a call." And that's kind of what got me my first gig. I made that call and I went to a meeting, and I ended up scoring a few films for these guys, and that's just what started it. And I just kind of, it's a marathon from there, but that's where it started.
All right, that is pretty cool. So you were,
Yeah,
I mean, that all happened while you're still in your work uniform.
I know. It's so
That's
crazy.
sometimes things are just meant to happen. It sounds like that
I
was one of
know.
those.
It absolutely was. It totally was.
Are you allowed to say the name of the company or like the indie horror film that you scored
Yeah,
on?
I mean, it was called The Darkness when I was scoring it. They changed the name to Devil Seed. It's like a horror movie made in London, Ontario, Canada. But it did pretty well. It did pretty well for in its genre.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially right now, horror is like on the comeback because
Mhm.
they have better budgets than some of these major Hollywood films, and people just come out to see the R rating.
Yeah,
I guess is what they're saying right now. Is the R rating is the
people,
big thing.
people go to theaters to see horror. It's kind of being proven time and again.
So you did that, and then what was the next big thing after that in your career?
It was a lot of similar stuff for a while. each gig was, a little bit, a little bit bigger, and it's really a snowball effect, and it's a marathon. It's the people you connect with early in your career, and you grow with them, and they do bigger stuff, and they bring you on to do bigger stuff. The next big thing would probably be the biggest step up was probably a film I did called Bandit, and then I did a show for Apple around the same time. And those were probably the next biggest step up from there, I think.
Oh wow. Yeah, Apple is a pretty big deal right now.
Yeah, no, they make really great stuff. I've done a couple shows for them since then, and they're great.
What shows have you done for them?
I did a show called Life by Ella. There was kind of a coming of age family show. Um, Great acting, great team. And then I did a show called Me, which is kind of a grounded cinematic superhero origin story that came out last fall. It was a really, really good show. Great show. Great. Another, great people who worked on it. Really good team. Super collaborative.
So when it comes to scoring music, I want to ask you this because this is something I picked up on as a kid when I was scared of horror movies and my dad would put them on. I'd wait for like the build up, the tension build up, and I'd know to turn my head and walk out of the room. So when it comes to you scoring music, do you like to build up tension? Is that your style, or do you have different styles that you mix in?
I mean, it's all about the project. I mean, some projects you can really build and kind of go crazy. Some projects you have to hold back a little bit. It's all about really about what the scene wants. I mean, I always kind of say, let's not force the audience. Let's not manipulate the audience. If either whether it's an emotional scene or a scary scene, like let's let the picture guide us on how far we should go. And so it's project dependent. I mean, sometimes you want to hold back, and sometimes silence is the best thing you can do. Sometimes silence is the most effective when you're scaring people. You know what I mean? You build to a certain point. If you take everything out, you can hear yourself breathing. You can hear your heart beating. It can be even scarier than having music there sometimes.
Yeah, I might never want to watch a horror movie that you scored on. No offense, you're probably very good at it. Sounds like you're very
That's
good
fun.
at it.
It's
Um,
super fun.
so you know, had all that in your past, and now you've done Queen of the Ring. So what was that like for you doing this project?
It was a blast. Honestly, it was probably the most fun I've had scoring. Um, just the world they created, the kind of instruments we got to use. We used like a ton of different instruments. I literally played. I think I have instruments all over this room that you can't even see. I think I played every single one, and the calluses on my fingers were so insane by the end. But just the arrangements we got to do, the instruments we got to play, really build Millie's theme from like small town Kansas girl with the fiddles and banjos all the way to the biggest stage where she's, you know, we've got the big orchestral theme coming in with the fiddles and banjos and stuff. So it was really just her journey scoring from start to finish was so much fun. And then we got to do all the cover songs as well. Dust in the Wind and Unforgiven and God's Gonna Cut You Down, all those on top of it in the style of our score. So it just continued that world. It was just such a blast.
Did you use the music in the score to like kind of, I guess, sound out or triumph from beginning to like the end?
Yeah, so it's really her journey. It kind of follows her arc. It starts as soon as we hear her theme in the beginning. It's played by a small arrangement, just a single fiddle, guitars, banjos, and stuff like that. And we changed the arrangement up as she got bigger and more famous and more renowned. We would kind of her score and her theme and her melodies would evolve with her. And so we ended up with a single fiddle, and we ended up with this big sweeping string arrangement, full orchestra at the end. And so we see this big resurgence of her at the end, and it's her theme and her full arrangement, and it's really powerful to see. It's like a very straightforward linear character arc told through music as well as the story and the acting and the directing. It was a really cool process.
When you take on a project like that, how long does it usually take for you to complete it?
You know what? It really ranges. I mean, 6 weeks to 8 weeks is typical. This one was a lot longer. I think I started working last May on it, and we had our first festival screening in November. and then we did more touch-ups, and then we did songs, and then so I literally finished everything I think right before the LA premiere. So this is a long one. I think we were all just really invested in its success, and we wanted to put our best foot forward, and um, so we just kind of kept tweaking until we couldn't anymore, really. And so I think all of us on the team were really had that mindset of just trying to make this the best film we all could together. And so it's very collaborative in that way.
No, I gotta ask. You mentioned that your dad plays as well. Has your dad ever hopped on some of this with you?
That'd be really cool, actually. No, he lives up in Canada, and so that's never organically happened. But that would be cool to do that one day. He's a good bassist.
Yeah, I was thinking that right away. I was thinking maybe like some type of collaboration between both of you. He hops on, or
Yeah, I did have my sister. My sister is an incredibly good vocalist. I did have her sing on one of the tracks for me to arrange around it before we had one of the artists come on and sing, and she did a great job. She was killer.
so throughout your career, any mentors or any people that you looked up to music wise that you've gotten to meet for your projects?
I haven't gotten to meet a ton of composer mentors. I mean, like a lot of people, I got into it listening to Hans Zimmer's work, and all the big guys, James Newton Howard and Howard Shore and Thomas Newman. I've never gotten to meet any of them, but there are different composers that I've connected with who I've turned to advice sometimes. Composer Pinar Toprak, she taught me a course way back when, and I've kept in touch with her, and I'll reach out every once in a while if I have questions or anything, and she's graciously answered. But I've never really been in that mentee position other than quick questions. But I'd love to meet people I look up to. I mean, that would be fantastic.
Have you gone back to maybe any older movies that you watched as a kid for inspiration, like musical score inspiration?
That is a good question. I mean, there's movies that I grew up with, like Hook, and I watched that movie like every day when I was a kid. Um, but that's not really a world you get to work in that much. I mean, there's not a lot of requests for John Williams type scores except for movies who need John Williams. So movies like that, it's not really childhoods I go back to. It's more, I mean, my favorite movies or favorite scores, or maybe scores that have left an impression on me that I'll go back and listen to. I don't think I've ever referenced a childhood favorite before.
Okay. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
I was asking because when I talk to a lot of different artists, if they have a favorite character, they'll go back to like a certain era in Superman, or like, a Kirby era art for comics. But I guess with music, it all depends. I guess it's a lot
Yeah.
different, the creative space.
I mean, the sound of the modern score is always evolving. Unless you really want a throwback sound. This Queen of the Ring did have a throwback kind of classic Hollywood theme that's not always prevalent in maybe some modern movies. But so we did kind of go back to that big sweeping theme that was more prevalent in like the 80s and 90s, and that was fun. So I guess in that instance, we did kind of do a bit of a throwback.
When it comes to doing these scores, a lot of the times, do these projects have deadlines for you that you have to meet, or are they usually like very lenient on the music side?
Again, it totally depends on the distributor. TV is always fast deadlines. This movie, we had deadlines for submissions. We had deadlines for Newport Beach Film Festival that we had to meet in for the mix. But it was, like I said, we worked on it for a long time. So this one was not deadline heavy until the very end. But most of the time, yeah, there's usually a mixed day by the time I get involved, and it's typically about 6 to 8 weeks out, and that's fine. I kind of like working on deadlines. It kind of keeps me focused, so I don't mind at all.
Do you get to work a lot from home, or do you prefer going into an actual studio?
I like it both. I mean, I work from my studio here. This is where my typical workstation, but I'll also go into the mix stage when we're doing the dub, and that's always fun to go in and actually collaborate and talk with the mixers and directors, and really bounce ideas off and get a good solid mix. So I love to be able to work from home and like make it perfect before I can send it. I have to send it to anybody. So it's not like as much of a performance, but it's something that I can really spend time on and make sure it's exactly what I want it to be. And then I love to go in and, you know, shoot ideas around and try different things. And on the dub stage, it's a fun part of the job that I get to do both.
What would you say is one of the most challenging aspects of working on major motion pictures?
I think I would think a lot of composers would say, and I would agree with, is that the first few initial days when it's the blank page and you have nothing written. And you're usually trying to figure out the theme first. And so that's probably the biggest challenge. A lot of times you'll see it and you'll have ideas right away. And that's typically how I like to work, is just go with the first idea, and it can change and that's fine, and finding that sound and experimenting and stuff. But if it's not clicking in the first few days, it can be pretty stressful. And then when you originally send in that first thematic idea and like the ink is still drying on your contract, and it's you want to make a good impression. So that's probably like the most kind of stressful time. But once you have a solid theme down, I feel like that's just the hardest part. And then that's your starting point for most of the rest of the score.
Have you ever, for let's just say like any premieres or anything like that you've been to, or even maybe as a backup for other people, have you ever played live?
I don't think so. No, I haven't done that yet. I'd like to. I know they do live performances of scores and stuff, and I think that would be so much fun to do, but I've never had the opportunity.
All right, this is gonna be a fun question, and I'm just curious because you're like a creative genius already, based on what you told me about how you build up the music and certain things. So, if you could like just throw it out there, is there any cartoon or character that you would love to write music for?
Animation specifically?
Animation
Ooh,
preferred, but it could be
yeah.
anything within animation.
I've wanted to do animation for a while. I've come close to doing a few different animated shows, um, but I think doing it like an animated DC show or something, maybe like a Batman show or something, or Batman. Like I love the DC animated movies, something like that. I think I would have a blast doing. I also really love. I've been watching a ton of animation lately. I watched Scavenger's Reign and what is it, The Boy and the Heron. I've been kind of on a kick of stuff like that. Something that's so insanely creative, like those shows, would be just a dream to do as well. Like Scavenger's Reign blew my mind. Like something like that would just be an absolute blast.
And we have a fun question we would like to ask on all our interviews. I'm not sure if you heard it yet or if anybody's told you, but we do like to ask because our audience sometimes wants to know if you like pineapple on pizza, yes or no.
100% yes.
Oh,
Yes. I had it. It was my birthday yesterday. I had pineapple on my pizza.
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. It's so fresh. Like it's just a great freshness to the otherwise savory flavor. I don't understand this debate. So good.
You know,
You're a no. You're a hard
I'm,
no.
yeah, I'm a hard no. Well, I grew up in the pizza place business, so as my family was always like, no pineapple. Everything else is okay. They'll put like all kinds of seafood on it, right?
Yeah.
All kinds of seafood, but pineapple was like a no go.
I grew up eating Hawaiian pizza, so maybe it's just something you need to grow up with or without.
For
I think.
I know we're getting up to the half hour mark, so one thing I wanted to ask you was if there's anybody else out there maybe that's thinking about being a composer or a musician and they've come from the same place that you have. Do you have any advice for them? Anything that you want to tell them out there?
For sure. I mean, you'll hear this a lot, but really developing your own sound, putting your 10,000 hours in, making sure that you are, before you send an email to a single person, that your skills are there, your music matches with kind of the landscape of today. You're a music producer as well as an arranger and an orchestrator, and you have to learn all these different skills. Make friends, keep up with them. Try not to network. I think networking is just, I just don't like it. I think you just do your best to make friends, and people want to work with their friends, and I want to work with my friends, and that's kind of how it goes. to keep up with people, be helpful to people, you know, offer services that might not be exactly what you want to do, but just offer help and kind of build what makes your sound unique. And um, what I like to do is play. I collect and play instruments and synths and pedals and experimentation and try and get outside the box. And so I would encourage people to find what makes their sound unique.
Something you said that I really like, and I want to point that out. You said it's not really networking, it's making friends. And I
Yeah,
think that's very important because a lot of people sometimes will go to, whether it might be like, one of those mixers to meet other people, and it's just, for a lot of people, they keep it as like acquaintance level, or every now and then they touch up with them. But I agree with you. I think it's better to make friends, find people with the same interests, circle
yeah,
yourself around people with positivity that want to grow with you,
yeah.
and the opportunities just open up from there.
They will, and it might not be in the time frame you think. Like I said before, it is a marathon. It takes a long time. But if you're making friends and you're being helpful and connecting with people, and you're not pushy or you don't need something from someone, it's gonna do its thing. It's gonna come together eventually, and you might get to work on some cool stuff. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Aaron, I want to thank you for your time. You have a lot of great advice here. Um, and we'll have to go back and let one of our panelists know about that horror movie because they're obsessed with horror films. So they'll go watch that and tell me what the score was
Yeah,
like.
do it. That'd be fun.
But, well, thank you and have a great day, man.
Cool, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.